Well, I'm very happy to be joined today by the gentlemen at the Valley Labor Report, David Story and Jacob Morrison. How are y'all doing?
Good. How are you?
Y'all getting all set up?
There we go.
Hey, sorry about that. Yeah.
Oh yeah, no worries.
I was watching you on my phone while while I was waiting for you to come in, and I was like, "Oh, okay, I need to stop it." And then when I hit the phone and it fell, so sorry about that.
Oh, no worries at all. I really appreciate y'all taking the time to join us today. For folks who aren't familiar, they run a really great radio program slash YouTube show that you should definitely be checking out. That covers a lot of the issues that are important to all of us as leftists. Fighting for labor, organized labor, and also fighting for it within your own communities, which is just something that is a big part of this show and the project that I've been trying to build. So we're really thrilled to be joined by y'all today.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Yeah, we really appreciate it.
Well, I wanted to start, if we could talk a little bit with y'all about, the union fight in Alabama that is, drawing so much national attention, which is this fight for a union at Amazon. There's been, a pretty decent amount of coverage, but I would be curious to hear y'all's, feeling sort of, how you feel like this campaign is doing and what people are sort of, saying about it around y'all's neck of the woods.
Go ahead, Jacob.
Yeah. Okay. I think that we're really hopeful. I'm sure that y'all saw the Data for Progress poll that was just released today that showed nationally Amazon employees favor a union by 69% of Amazon employees favor a union. So that made me feel really good. The organizers here they've said like we really think we can win, and so I think that they can win, and one of the stories that really makes me believe that these guys can actually win is the fact that when they started off, they were only going for a 1,500 person bargaining unit, and that was just the full-time regular employees, and they were collecting cards. They were collecting authorization cards from employees in the whole plant while this was going on, but they said, just to start with, we're going to do the 1,500 employees. Amazon floods the unit and says, no, wall to wall, we think this is the appropriate bargaining unit, and not thinking that there's no way that these people have more than 3,000 cards. There's no way that they have that many cards. And boom, that's what he says. He throws down 3,000 hand-signed authorization cards in the National Labor Relations Board meeting, and they don't have anything else. And so the election gets called. And that's, 3,000 cards signed is more than 50% of the bargaining unit. There's only 5,800 employees. If the PRO Act was law, they would already have a union. And that, I think that's important to underscore. A majority of the workers at this facility have already said, I want a union in writing. And so now they're going through this long process that allows Amazon to do more union busting and things like that. But a majority of the workers have already said, I want a union. And so I reckon that they're going to be able to win. I think they will. And I'm really, really excited for it.
I'm hopeful and very excited too. And I want to underscore to people who might have not been following this story very closely, just how, obviously they're up against this nasty corporation, Amazon. But as you were just mentioning, these tactics that they're using against, the union there are designed by some of the nastiest anti-union law firms in the country. Right?
Literally, Pinkertons are involved, right? Weren't the Pinkertons? Am I getting that wrong? Didn't they hire Pinkertons?
The Pinkertons were involved in Europe. They're I can't remember the exact Western European country, South Sweden or it's one of the where they actually had hired the Pinkertons to do some internal investigation on their employees.
Yeah, Amazon has hired Pinkertons. I've not been made aware of any Pinkertons here in Alabama.
But they have also got the city too to slow down the red light, right? Could you explain that to our listeners?
Yeah, so and it's actually not the city. That's who they assumed controlled the traffic light, and so when the initial accusation was made, they said, this was the city. The organizers and the workers assumed it was the city of Bessemer. City of Bessemer said, no, we didn't change any traffic light, without saying that's not our traffic light, and it was actually Jefferson County's traffic light, and Jefferson County did change the traffic light even after Amazon had said that no, we didn't request a traffic light change. But what had happened was there's a traffic light coming out of the facility, and there on that public property, organizers, Big Mike, a poultry plant worker from up in our area in Decatur, has been going down there and handing out cards, talking to workers, and it was a normal length light. And so he would have some time. They would ask him some questions. He would answer them. And Amazon didn't like that. And so they actually went to the politicians in charge of that traffic light and said, hey, change this. And they said, yes, sir. I mean, it's crazy. It's insane.
It's a sign of a company with way too much money and resources to put against anti-labor activity, I think, is another way to characterize it. I wanted to know, there's the famous Robin D.G. Kelly book, Hammer and Hoe, about Alabama communist organizing. How much is that historical memory is evident to you guys in this? Or I'm just curious, anything related to like the lineage of Alabama organizing? Because I remember hearing it in some interview that it was one of the most organized states, if not the most organized, a generation or so ago.
Yeah, well,
Jacob's actually read that book. I haven't got around to the book yet, so go ahead, Jacob.
Yeah, well, and we're actually, I've been emailing back and forth with Dr. Kelly today, and we're going to be having him on the show sometime in the next week or two to talk about that, because I think it's really, really interesting. It's for a long time, it's always been one of the most organized states in the South. And I really believe that one of the reasons for that is because of the effective leadership and the effective rank and file organizing that the labor movement in Alabama had in the past with the Communist Party. I mean, the CIO back in the middle of the 20th century in Alabama, it was almost completely headed by communist like actual card carrying communists, and that's pretty crazy. And I have to believe that some part of that legacy is why Alabama has stayed more organized than our counterparts anywhere else in the South. I mean, our union density rate is at this point a little bit lower than the national average, but not by much. I mean, union density on the national level is like 10.8. Here it's like 10.6. I mean, that's like pretty typical, where in North and South Carolina it's like 2%, Mississippi it's like 4%, Georgia it's like 6%. I mean, Alabama is really, really a big outlier. And in another interview, Dr. Kelly actually said that the RWDSU, he believes, is ideologically, tactically, and strategically descendant of the mine, mill, and smelters union that was a completely run rank and file, from the rank and file to the leadership was card carrying communists. And the sharecroppers union, he reckons that there's like a really good lineage there, and I don't disagree with him. Talking to the workers, we've had some good conversations with Amazon workers there. We had a good conversation with Big Mike, one of the poultry workers there, and I mean, I think that these are folks that know what they're about, that know their history, and that know what they deserve. And so and something that we've been hearing from all the calls that have been going on is that people are talking to their families, their brothers, their sisters, their moms and dads, and they're talking to them about how, oh yeah, I've been in a union before, I'm in a union now, you should vote yes.
If I could just follow up on that briefly, kind of to answer your question about the correlation between the unionism and the communism that Alabama's seen over the years. There's still a very strong left movement in Alabama. We're not the only two folks that kind of skew left, and I think the history of Alabama and the anarchy that has a large prevalence in the state has been co-opted very well by the libertarian mind, I say Libertarian Party, and to some extent to a large extent by the Republican Party. They try to portray themselves as small government conservatives and supporting gun rights and things like this. And so they've brought a lot of what I would consider more anarchist principled people into these parties because the left, what I would say the left, as far as the Democratic Party, has strayed so far away from their roots. So, so to answer your question, I believe there's a humongous base of leftists in Alabama. They've just been lied to for all these years. And unfortunately, a lot of them are not as educated and don't follow Fox News and conservative talk radio is basically the downfall of what we've seen in Alabama anyways.
And I mean, I think it's important to consider that Bessemer is a town that is 70% Black, and 80% of the workforce at Amazon is Black. I mean, that's I think that's one reason that we're not seeing a whole lot from what I'm hearing of like attempts at racial divisions. That the divisions that Amazon has been trying to stoke has been a lot along age lines. They're trying to tell the young workers that, because unions bargain for seniority rights, you're not going to be able to get anything extra for being good at your job, which is not true. A lot of union contracts have performance bonuses and things like that you can bargain for. Although the two workers that Amazon gave to the media to talk to for an anti-union perspective were both white, and all of the workers that have been in support of the union have been Black. So, I mean, that's something to consider too.
I think there's no doubt about the motivations there from Amazon's perspective. And I wanted to get to what David was mentioning in a second, but just if y'all could, what is like the status of the unionization project right now for the union and like the calendar going forward, right? Because I know they're in the process, but what are the next couple of weeks looking like for them?
Yeah, so the next couple of weeks is basically a large group of unionists across the United States sitting on phones every day. Jacob and I have been involved. There's, of course, RWDSU is involved. I reached out to one of my sisters in the Machinist Union last night to see if she could bring in some more people, just for the simple fact that it's almost like if y'all have ever worked on a political campaign, a large political campaign, it's exactly identical. We're on the phone, we're talking to them, figuring out what their concerns are, if they know how to vote, helping them with anything like that, answering questions, and and some of the ballots are already coming in, and they'll continue to come in up until next month, whenever the NLRB, who is the National Labor Relations Board, says, this is it, and they'll start counting the ballots. But right now, it's the work is you're seeing, if you follow any of their social media, you're seeing a lot of community organizations begin putting out commercials to help them. Last week, I think we seen the NFL Players Association making some statements on a commercial to help them. I think I seen today that Danny Glover is coming sometime in the near future to talk to them. So you have a lot of faces, well-known faces, that's going to be, coming down and supporting them. But the bulk of that work is sitting on a phone all day long with as many workers as we can get to.
Yeah, and that's the difficult part. So it's not always particularly glamorous, but it's critical and important work.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and I think that it's a bit different than a political campaign, because there are ways that, or there are a lot of ways that they're tried to that we try to funnel them into different directions depending on where they are. Whereas the political campaigns that I've been a part of, there's not a whole lot of. It's just kind of like, hey, there's an election. Are you going to vote for this person? Yes or no? And there's not a whole lot of follow up. Where here, because like this, we're working with RWDSU and we're working with the organization that it's going to be a big part of these workers' lives moving forward, and that is going to be them moving forward. There's really a strong attempt to incorporate into the kind of deep organizing process as many workers as are interested moving forward, because they're going to be the people that are going to be voting on their contract. Another one of the things that Amazon is trying to tell people is that you might get a raise, but who knows, you might lose, you might make only $14 an hour, you never know. And it's like, well, they're going to be the people that are negotiating, and they're going to have to vote to ratify a contract. And I don't think these folks are stupid enough to vote for a contract where they have less than they started with, and so really incorporating these people into the union, making sure that they know that they are the union. I think that's something that is a bit different than the political process. And as for, to give you a specific date, the voting ends on March 29th. The vote counting will begin on March 30th and last for a few days.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's such a funny point, especially if Amazon's making that argument. It's like, well, y'all would be the ones who are, putting the contract forward too, right? Y'all would be negotiating in that as well. I wanted to, there's two other things I'd really like to get to with y'all. And I really hope that y'all come in and join us again sometime soon, because I really value your perspective. But the first thing would be, y'all mentioned it earlier on, but the PRO Act. Could y'all give us a quick rundown of what that is and why it's so important to, revitalizing a labor movement in this country?
David?
Yeah, you probably caught us both with our pants down. I don't have my cheat sheet in front of me, but I can
I'm
tell.
sorry.
That's okay. That's
no.
quite okay.
Well, David, you don't know. I can tell him. I
Okay, there you go.
Cheat sheet. Come on, man.
There's so much to the PRO Act, is what I'm saying.
Oh, of course, yeah.
It's literally, it's very, very comprehensive. But if you've got it, rattle it off the top of your head.
All right.
warrior.
Yeah. Well, now I will say that there's definitely going to be stuff that I leave off, because like David's, this would be, if the PRO Act passes, which we hope that it will be the most comprehensive rewrite of labor law since Taft-Hartley. It's huge in half a century. One of the first things that it'll do is it'll take away right to work laws across the country. It'll make right to work laws illegal. And a lot of folks don't know what right to work is, and they reckon that it means at will employment, or they reckon it means that it makes unions illegal. And what it does, it just says that unions can't bargain for a union security clause, which means that they've got to, any person who works there has to pay agency fees to the union for the benefits that they receive from having union representation. It's the reason that, you can't opt out of taxes in your hometown because you don't like the mayor. So, you ought not be able to opt out of dues because you don't like the union, because you're still getting the benefits. And if you want to change something about it, then be a part of that democratic process. Another thing that it does is it increases penalties significantly for union busting. There's a lot of union busting that is still technically illegal, but that it's just the cost of doing business. It's much more, it's much cheaper for companies now to fire an organizer and then later have to pay them back wages than it is to bring a union in. And so they'll do that, and knowing that they're breaking the law. And another thing that makes that really a small penalty is because the back wages that they have to pay is only the difference between what they would have made and what they did make. So if they get a different job, they only have to pay the difference. And it might not even be any difference. If they get a job where they pay more, then they don't have to pay them anything. And there's no penalty at all for that. And so that not increases the penalty to not only back wages, but there's significant fines and things like that that's added on to it. we did a really long interview with Ryan Kakaris. He's the communications person with the Painters Union. They've been leading the charge in the labor movement on that. So I'd recommend folks that want to go really in depth with that to check out our interview there. Another thing that it does is guarantee a first contract within a year. By law, a lot of places, when they win a union in the workplace, they actually don't get a contract because the employer will stall and they won't bargain in good faith. And so it strengthens the requirements to bargain in good faith, and it strengthens the worker's hand. It eliminates the ability to permanently replace workers. It is still currently technically illegal to fire a worker if they go on strike, but you can permanently replace them, which is the same as firing. You can say, if they go out on strike and you hire replacements, you can just say, oh, I'm sorry, you don't have a job anymore. And that's functionally the same as firing. It eliminates that. You can't permanently replace a worker anymore. The second that workers want to come off of a strike, you have to give them their job backs. So that really increases bargaining leverage there. I think there's a few things, but secondary strikes. Yeah. Talk about that, David.
Well, one of the biggest things that is very key to this union drive is it does away with dual elections. So in other words, like Jacob said earlier, we've got all the authorization cards signed, enough signed to have a union. It's automatic recognition. Right now, the way it's set up, you have to get the authorization card signed. The company stalls. Luckily, this time they weren't able to stall, but just a couple of months. Normally you'll see stalls for 6 months. It gives the company time to hire, and it is the exact same union busting workbook that every lawyer goes by. So it completely does away with having to have a secondary election. If the workers sign cards, they get a union, and it's as simple as that. And like Jacob was about to say, the secondary strikes as well. It allows, it really brings the labor movement back to where it started in the late 1800s, early 1900s, in Eugene Debs' time, to where if I say I'm working at X company and Y company says we can't put up with this crap any longer, they walk out. We can walk out of our plant as well in solidarity with them and go on strike immediately. So you can actually get to what a lot of these people the last year have been talking about is, a nationwide strike, a general strike that makes this possible where it wasn't before. Not to say that that's a viable option until you can get the labor movement numbers built up, but it lays the groundwork.
Yeah.
It's going to take some serious phone calls on the part of everybody in every state, calling their senators. The House is an easy win. But these conservative Democrats, if they like to call themselves Democrats or Republicans, in my eye, that's what it's going to take. And I've talked to a lot of people that say that it's impossible, but I mean, there's a lot of things that's been impossible throughout the years. You can't just say, screw it. We don't think it can happen, so we're not going to work on it.
Yeah, and we're closer now to passing it than we've been in a very long time, I don't know. We may not get another chance to do something like this, and so I think we've got to, or for a long time anyway. And so I think that it's incumbent on folks, especially in the labor movement, who have kind of the means to lobby through our unions and things like that. But on everybody, because so many of the stuff that we rattled off, and I'm sure there's more. That really affects the ability of people to have a union in the first place. David and I, we've already got unions. We've got union contracts. We've got union benefits. We've got things like that. And so, the PRO Act, it'd make my life a little bit better, I guess. But for people that want to have a union, this is really this is for you. And you need to hope that this passes, and you need to lobby for this to pass, for your own self-interest, because it's for you.